think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
New details tonight on the arrest of a YouTube mom charged with child abuse. Coming up here, the haunting 911 call from a neighbor who found Ruby Franke's son in a deplorable condition.
Good afternoon, Mr. Winward. How are you?
Plus, Ruby Franke and her business partner Jody Hildebrandt had their first hearing today. We'll show you what happened in the courtroom.
A gorgeous start to the weekend, but we will see a chance for some storms to return if weather will impact your weekend.
A new piece of technology is making it easier for students who are blind and severely visually impaired to work independently with graphic information. I'll introduce you to the first student who is blind to use it in the United States.
Sorry, you can't quit. We're short-staffed.
And it's week 1 of NFL football, and a Utah man is going viral for putting his wife on notice. What he won't be doing on game days until February.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelly Chapman. Bob Evans has the night off. Tonight, we are hearing the haunting 911 call from the neighbor who found the son of Ruby Franke after he allegedly escaped from being tied up in a basement. Fox 13 News reporter Lucy Nelson breaks down that phone call and tells us what came out of the YouTube mom's first court appearance earlier today.
Ruby Franke is a Utah mother of 6 behind a well-known parenting YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. She and her business partner Jody Hildebrandt also ran a so-called counseling site called Connections. Last week, both were arrested and charged on several counts of aggravated child abuse after evidence surfaced suggesting they kept 2 of Franke's children tied up and starving in Hildebrandt's basement.
Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help.
This is the 911 call from a man in Ivins, Utah. A 12-year-old boy showing up on his doorstep in an unimaginable condition, asking him to call police.
And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. Yeah, she's a bad lady. We didn't realize how bad.
That neighbor's house belongs to Jody Hildebrandt, where she and well-known YouTube mom Ruby Franke broadcasted their controversial parenting advice and counseling site called Connections. It was in that same home where police say Franke's son escaped from the basement and ran to a neighbor's house for help.
He has duct taped around each ankle. Yeah, there's sores around him. I think there's a good chance he's been... and he has them around his ankles. I mean, his wrists as well. Okay, this boy has been... This kid has obviously been... I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
The dispatcher is heard saying they'll send an ambulance, and in the background the boy tells the neighbor that he doesn't need help and that nothing bad was happening to him at Hildebrandt's home.
He says what's happened to him is his fault.
The boy was immediately transferred to the hospital, and later police officers would find his little sister in the basement of Hildebrandt's home in a similar condition.
Good afternoon, Mr. Winward. How are you?
Franke and Hildebrandt had their first court appearance Friday in Washington County.
My case is assigned to Judge Barnes. I would make an oral motion today to transfer this case to Judge Walton so that co-defendants track each other.
The judge granted a switch of Franke's judge to be the same as Hildebrandt's. The two will continue to be held without bond. Hildebrandt's attorney also filed a motion to the court asking for an expedited detention hearing, citing the defendant has experienced a life-threatening medical issue, resulting in her hospitalization for several days. As of now, the two are scheduled in court for September 21st. In studio, Lucy Nelson, Fox 13 News, Utah.
The NTSB has released its preliminary report into a deadly plane crash in West Jordan that took place 2 weeks ago. The report reveals that one of the witnesses of the crash that killed 50-year-old Creighton King of West Valley City was another pilot who was scheduled to race him in Reno this month. As we've reported, the plane that crashed was an experimental home-built Hensler Howard Cassett. Investigators learned that a nearby commercial business captured surveillance video of the plane crashing just shortly after takeoff, hitting a chain link fence before it hit the ground. The plane lost both its wings in the crash. The report, however, does not reveal exactly why the plane crashed. That's still under investigation. We'll continue to keep tabs on this story and update you when we find out more. The city of Woods Cross has confirmed that Police Chief Chad Soph had resigned from his post effective August 30th. He was originally placed on administrative leave on July 27th, and no reason was given to the public as to why, because the city said it was a personal matter. This is also in contrast to a post alluding to retiring on social media last month. City officials say Scott Buchanan will still serve as interim police chief. As we told you earlier this week, Lori Vallow Daybell's attorneys have filed an appeal. Now we're learning that appeal has been suspended. A new appellate attorney has been appointed. Lori was sentenced to serve life in prison without the possibility of parole for the deaths of her two youngest children and her husband's first wife. In the appeal, Vallow Daybell's attorney cites 16 issues at her trial, including whether she was actually competent to stand trial. The appeal is suspended for 14 days to give the new defense counsel time to get oriented. An update now in the case of the 4 University of Idaho students stabbed to death back in 2022. Cameras will not be allowed in the courtroom during the trial for Brian Kohberger, the man accused of the murders. The prosecution, defense, and judge all agreed to that. The Idaho Statesman reports the trial likely will not begin until 2024. Well, this afternoon, an elderly woman was helped just in the nick of time while right in the middle of a scam that could have cost her thousands of dollars. The Summit County Sheriff's Office says a vigilant employee at the Chevron gas station in the Kimball Junction area noticed that she was using the ATM inside and believed she was being scammed. He notified Sheriff Frank Smith, who just happened to be at the gas station as well at the time. The sheriff confirmed this after learning from her that she was making multiple large cash withdrawals after being manipulated over the phone for over 5 hours.
She was on the phone with the scammers at the time. The sheriff was able to get her to disconnect with the scammers. The sheriff called for a uniformed patrol sergeant to come up, and the sergeant and the sheriff accompanied this woman to two different banks where she returned or redeposited the $15,000 that she was just about to put into the hands of the scammers.
Wow, just in time, thank goodness. The sheriff presented the Chevron employee with an outstanding citizen certificate for their attention to detail, also quick response in reporting this incident. They do want to warn everyone situations like these are plaguing our community and to be extremely cautious of possible scams. A student at the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind recently became the very first student in the United States to use a specific piece of technology. It makes it easier for blind and severely visually impaired people to work independently. Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold has the story that you will only see right here.
Navigate to.
Cami Cordero is a 19-year-old senior.
My nickname is also Birdie because I love to sing.
In the Utah School for the Blind Bridges program.
I can see out of my left eye, but not with my right, so like everything is just blurry.
However, this new tool,
Illinois. 5 neighboring states.
called a Tactinom machine,
3D model Paris Sacré-Cœur.
will make it easier for students who are blind and severely visually impaired to work independently with graphic information. For Cami, she was the first student in the entire country to give it a test spin at the campus in Ogden.
I've never even used a device like this before.
The neighboring states are indicated.
We don't necessarily think of graphics being all that important or something to even think about as a sighted person, but visually impaired folks need a great deal of graphic representation.
Carrie Ostergaard Welch is part of the Access Technology team, having worked for the Utah Schools for the Blind for 10 years. She says she came across the German company who makes the machine at a technology convention in California last year.
They had not sold anything to a U.S. audience, but they were there, and I hit the roof because I said we really need something like this for our kids. So they're usually, I think, $550. So $5,500. The Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind have a foundation, and they fit the bill for these two devices.
Gulf of Mexico.
Ostergaard Welch and Cami showed Fox
Gulf of
13 News on
Mexico.
Friday just how it works.
The Tactinom has streamlined the experience for the reader in that they can locate an item on the graphic and push enter, and the camera, if you will be able to locate what it is that they're wanting to know about.
Something she says was never available before.
It's always been up to the Braille reader or the low vision graphic user to figure it out on their own, which is very difficult.
Quentin Williams is a former student who became an employee for the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind 15 years ago.
No way, and it gives you sound effects?
It really is groundbreaking and puts the world at the fingertips of our students.
He and current students like Cami are excited for what this kind of technology can bring for the future.
It's a huge catalyst for independence, but it also opens the doors for students to explore new career opportunities, new fields that they may not have thought of before.
Start quiz.
Does this give you more independence?
Yes.
How exciting is that for you?
It's really cool.
Being on the forefront of this, Ostergaard Welch told me that she's thrilled to have this opportunity, saying they will continue to empower their students and give them the access to what they need in order to be successful. In Ogden, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Important tool there. Great to see. Wonderful weather for this Friday night. Allison, have you been outside?
Yes.
Did you get a chance?
It was hard to come back into the studio after a beautiful Friday evening. Yes, we've got a really nice start to the weekend, but I do want to let you know that we've got some increasing moisture here across the region heading into the weekend. Weekend will not be a washout by any stretch of the imagination, but we will have some isolated to widely scattered storms to contend with across Utah. 78 right now in Salt Lake, 73 for Ogden, 73 in Provo. Comfortable statewide right now, mostly in the 60s and 70s. St. George, you're at 85 right now though, so you're still rather warm there. We're under mostly clear sky. Wind has calmed down quite a bit. We will see a little bit of a light breeze again tomorrow, but no watches, no warnings, no advisories in place for this weekend. Dropping into the 60s after midnight as you wake up tomorrow morning here in Salt Lake City. Across the state, mostly clear sky on this Friday night into your Saturday morning. We'll chat about that chance for some rain here across Utah coming up in the full forecast.
The police report says one thing, the charges say something else about patients being assaulted inside this hospital. Tonight, we ask, what's really going on?
2 World War II era bombers fly into the Logan Airport for the weekend. We spoke with some who have an emotional attachment to these planes. Coming up.
And let's do another round of high school football, including region play underway for some.
I will no longer be available for work on Sundays, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday evenings nor Thursday evenings due to conflicting commitments.
And a local couple is going viral on social media just in time for the return of the NFL. The story behind the resignation letter featured in a viral video. Happening this weekend, 2 World War II bombers have flown into the Logan Cache Airport for the public to be able to tour and even fly on. Fox 13 News reporter Spencer Joseph was there today as some Logan residents with a special connection had the opportunity to get up close to the war relics.
If you're around Logan this weekend, look up to the skies because you might see one of these.
The way that they've maintained and restored them is just amazing.
And while they draw a crowd, they aren't just to look at. Both of these World War II bombers, the B-17 Flying Fortress and the B-25 Mitchell, are fully operational and this weekend are waiting for Logan residents to climb aboard.
I fly all the time on, for work, but to be on a vintage plane like this is just a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
One of those is Gary Mead.
I'm just a little bit tongue-tied because it's a special experience to be able to get on this plane for the first time.
But for Mead, it means a little more because this B-25 was stationed at Corsica during World War II.
And my dad was stationed in Corsica at the same time, and his job was to repair B-25 Mitchell aircraft.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Gary's dad, Maurice Mead, almost certainly worked on this very aircraft over 60 years ago.
Well, he was my hero. You know, I looked up to him, still do. He's been gone 20 years now.
And as Gary gets to hop on, Susan Hawks was getting off the plane with a story of her own.
They were asked continually to get up at any time and go fly mission after mission.
Her uncle, Staff Sergeant Glenn Badero, also flew on these same planes.
He was in the 13th Army Air Corps, and he flew on B-25s.
Unfortunately, he was killed in action and is still missing to this day.
I was thinking about him the whole time.
It's always a thrill to go on tour with this aircraft and the other aircraft, the B-17.
Mitch counts as the crew chief of these planes, and from the youngest to the oldest fan, he sees how much they inspire.
Well, I think the same thing happens today as it did even when I was a kid. You know, my grandfather would take me down to the airport, and I became a pilot as well.
And while many are clamoring to get a shot of history, Mitch invited both Susan and Gary to become a part of history.
It was just a real honor to be able to add his name.
By signing their relatives' names.
I think he was my wingman today.
Inside.
Thank you.
The Bombay doors.
It just, you know, brings tears to my eyes and warms my heart.
That's what we're here for. And personally, it gives me a lot of gratification to be able to help people to have some type of connection with the past that they've always wondered about.
And it's moments like these that make the efforts to maintain these flying machines and the journeys to get them here all worth it.
They can now touch that machine that their father was a mechanic or pilot or crew chief.
Spencer Joseph.
It's just a great feeling for the crew that come here to be with the aircraft.
Fox 13 News, Utah.
Oh, what a story. Both aircraft will be at the Logan Airport through Sunday. Unfortunately, spots to fly on the planes are all booked up, but they are free to be able to see and touch up close. TGIF, everyone. Happy Friday, leading into what sounds like a really nice weekend, Allison.
Yes, for the most part, the weekend's going to be fantastic. I wanted to take you on the journey of the last 7 days, though, because it's been a pretty wild week. We had Labor Day on Monday. You probably haven't forgotten about how cool it was, but just looking at what we've experienced here in Salt Lake, we went all over the board. We had 71 on Monday. We had our first snowfall of the season up in the mountains. Today we've made it to 92. So an average high is 84 degrees. We have been all over the place, and we will be getting closer to average throughout our 7-day forecast. Mostly clear tonight, tomorrow morning mild with a clear start, sunny and warm for tomorrow, air quality moderate. We do have the chance for some increasing moisture here across the state this weekend and across the region, really. So temperatures right now getting ready for bed. Many of us in the 60s and 70s. Kelly was saying how she loves just hanging out outdoors late at night or early in the mornings, just getting that little bit of a taste of the fall air. And then we have the hot afternoons. So if you like the cooler weather, you've got those morning hours. If you like the heat, you've got the afternoons, and mostly clear sky. So let's chat about what we can expect for this weekend, because we do have the chance for some thunderstorms here across the region. For us here in Utah, we're not expecting a severe weather threat, just the chance for some thunderstorms. So the storm threat for tomorrow, everything highlighted in mint green from Cedar up through Tooele and Provo, brings us the chance for thunderstorms. As we look at the flash flooding potential for tomorrow, it is not expected in our recreation areas. We could see some gusty winds and some brief precipitation with these storms if they develop, primarily for the mountains of southern and central Utah for tomorrow. And then we'll keep that chance around across the state throughout much of our 7-day forecast. It's just a really low chance on any given day for almost all of you. Overnight temperatures here in Salt Lake, Saturday you wake up 55 to 65 degrees. So it'll be a somewhat mild start tomorrow, not as cool as it was earlier in the week for our morning temperatures. And we'll see a little bit of a breeze tomorrow, mainly 10 to 20 miles per hour. Although we could see a few stronger gusts if we have any thunderstorms that do develop. For the Wasatch Front tomorrow, mid-60s early in the day. Temperatures tomorrow close to 90 again. Some isolated storms are possible here across Utah. Will become partly cloudy tomorrow. And for St. George, you'll be sunny and close to 100 degrees tomorrow. So tomorrow's likely the hottest day in our 7-day forecast, and then we will see some more relief from temperatures getting into the second half of the 7-day forecast. Saturday, 3 p.m., we're looking at 80 to 90 here across the state with the chance for some showers to develop primarily near the Nevada border and into western Utah and for the mountains. St. George 98 tomorrow, 95 Sunday, Monday, low 90s next week. For Salt Lake City, we'll break down our rain chances here over the next 7 days coming up in the Super 7-day forecast. But for tomorrow, 89, 84 on Sunday.
Looking good, Allison, thanks. Coming up after mudslides in Bryce Canyon, progress now being made in cleaning up Highway 6 when crews expect to be done. We have an update now on U.S. Highway 6 after mudslides forced the rural highway to close in both directions just last Sunday. It happened near milepost 228 in Bryce Canyon between Soldier Summit and Helper. Fox 13 News anchor April Baker looks into the progress made in a short time.
Piles of asphalt, mud, and just an overall mess sat before crews after last Sunday's mudslide in Bryce Canyon. While it looked like it could take days or even weeks for the road to reopen, crews had one direction of it temporarily fixed and ready for cars in about 24 hours.
I was surprised when you see the amount of damage that is out there.
UDOT spokesperson John Gleason says even more progress has been made since then. Take a look at this aerial view of US 6 from Sky Fox on Monday. Gleason says the section that you see on the right has now been repaired, repaved, and is open to cars. Crews will now work on the section you see on the left, which will be closed off to vehicles during that time.
It really speaks to the dedication of our workers, and they understood that there's not really a great alternate route out there.
That said, we wanted to know how a road project like that can be addressed and fixed so quickly, and why projects like this on I-80 and Sugar House usually take years to complete.
It's a massive project as compared to a more concentrated, just very localized issue where we had to repair the flooding damage over the weekend.
Gleason says US 6 also took less time because a culvert project was already taking place in the area where the mudslide occurred.
There we had the contractor and our employees that were ready to go to work, all of the materials, so we were able to get on top of it really quickly.
Gleason anticipates the culvert project and repaving of US 6 to be finished by mid-October. April Baker, Fox 13 News, Utah.
There were times where I would go down there and nobody was on the unit and the patients were just wandering around.
The Utah Attorney General's office has a responsibility to protect psychiatric patients. Tonight, they have an updated message on Highland Ridge Hospital.
We've been through hell and back, and it's been really rough.
Fighting for his future, I spoke to a former Salt Lake City firefighter who says he was injured on the job but is not getting help for it.
And later in sports, under the lights we go as Friday night means high school football.
You can't hit back because we're the ones that are going to get in trouble here.
A psychiatric hospital in Midvale was under criminal investigation, but in the end, just one employee faced charges.
Honestly, I can't believe it hasn't been shut down by the state already.
If you have a loved one that is requiring care in a facility like this, do your research.
I'm hoping by the end of this month they're going to be closing their doors.
That recording is from a year and a half ago, but despite wishful thinking from police, tonight Highland Ridge Hospital is open for business, taking patients. I'm Fox 13 investigative reporter Adam Herpetz, and this is part 2 of our series into Highland Ridge. We asked what happened when police found multiple cases of adults and children being raped inside. Patients say not even the showers inside this psychiatric hospital are safe. Michael was 15 years old, fighting depression when he says teenage girls walked in to grope and sexually harass him in the bathroom.
One of them was saying how they want to make out with me and have sex with me and stuff, and while she was trying to get into the room, this girl who has anger issues, she's kind of scary and whatnot, so.
I went there for treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was traumatized the whole time I was there.
Courtney is a nurse. She checked herself into Highland Ridge in 2021, but once she saw what it was like, she went from patient to caregiver.
It was so unfair, and I felt so powerless because I know better.
She didn't know where she was.
She didn't know what she was doing.
She suspected her new friend was being over-medicated, so each day she went in to help her shower and change. No supervision. She says nothing inappropriate happened, but it could have.
Patients have free access to each other's rooms.
Since 2019, we've found 31 documented reports of assault and 17 reports of sexual assault at Highland Ridge. Employees say they were told not to report those types of cases, even though the law requires it.
It's awful that, that sexual abuse happens and that it is still happening. There were times where I would go down there and nobody was on the unit and the patients were just wandering around.
I have never felt so degraded, for going forward with problems.
Some employees are willing to show their face. Others are still afraid, especially if they could get charged with a crime.
There were numerous reports coming from UPD.
Rich Pyatt is a spokesperson for the Utah Attorney General's office. According to their investigation, the problems at Highland Ridge were habitual, and only assaults involving patients with funding issues were being reported.
In order to prove fraud, there's a certain threshold that needs to be met. None of the results of the investigation rose to the level of any kind of fraud charge.
The report shows they interviewed the CEO of Highland Ridge, Jim Hess. According to his bio, he is an expert in risk management. But according to the police report, quote, he said he doesn't have enough staff to keep everybody safe. In the end, just one charge was filed against a man named Jeremy Plum.
He was charged and pleaded guilty to a Class B misdemeanor, failure to report abuse or neglect.
Plum was the director of risk management at Highland Ridge. We don't have a photo of him because he never spent a day in jail.
The case that sparked the charge was not an outlier.
So why only the one charge? Despite multiple unreported rapes, the Attorney General's office says it couldn't answer that question. And as you're about to see, I don't know turned out to be the theme of the interview. You see, Plum's case never made it to trial. Instead, he was offered a deal, pay a $690 fine, and the charge goes away.
Plea in abeyance is basically saying, yes, I did something wrong, but I'd like the opportunity to have a little forgiveness happen for the charge to go away.
Is it appropriate to offer a plea in abeyance when there's this many cases?
I don't know how to answer that. Our Medicaid fraud unit is not afraid to go after people, but we have to deal with the evidence that's in front of us.
Were there evidentiary issues on this case?
I can't really answer that.
Plum does not work at Highland Ridge anymore. We tried to reach him, but couldn't find him. The AG's office says he moved to California. Highland Ridge also declined to comment. There's patients getting raped at this facility repeatedly, and one employee gets charged with one count, and he has to pay a fine, and it's removed from his record. That seems pretty lenient. Do you agree with that, or?
I don't know.
You don't know if it's lenient, or you don't know?
Well, I don't have the information to answer that question about whether it's lenient.
Is this office happy with the outcome?
I don't know.
The AG's office says the hospital took those cases as a learning opportunity, which is the same answer the Department of Health has been getting for the last few years. They have the authority to shut this place down, but so far have chosen not to. We'll show you why when our investigation continues Sunday at 9. But for now, reporting in Midvale, Adam Herbets, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Well, coming up, a Salt Lake City firefighter trying to tackle health issues he says he got while on the job. His fight for help from the city he served.
And coming up, we've got temperatures today that were above average by quite a bit. We hit 92. What to expect through the weekend and where we could see some rain. We'll be right back.
Injured while battling wildfires in California with the Salt Lake City Fire Department in 2017. Evan Fitzgerald is now trying to get some much needed help. Fox 13 News reporter Mythili Gubbi spoke to his family and tried to get some answers from Salt Lake City officials.
Evan Fitzgerald's dream has always been to help people.
So when I was young, my dad was killed in a tractor accident. I remembered the first responders who came and tried to help us, and that always, I revered them, and that kind of grew in me to a desire to be that.
He was a volunteer firefighter, did his certifications, became an EMT, and eventually joined the Salt Lake City Fire Department.
We've worked really, really hard to have the opportunity to help people.
The job took him to California to help battle wildfires with FEMA in 2017. But on his first day there, he was hurt.
I was hit on the head by a tree branch that broke my helmet and sent me down a hill about 200 feet.
For the dad of 3 boys, that day changed everything.
I was diagnosed with concussion and developed a cough like the next day when I went back to duty. Couldn't get out of the smoke. So my body just couldn't recover, and I developed reactive airway asthma. That was diagnosed just a few months after, and that progressed into this disease that I have. It kind of branched off also into relapsing polychondritis.
When he first came home, like the biggest thing I saw was he had a traumatic brain injury, so it changed his personality. He wasn't able to control like his emotions. Like we went through marriage counseling, like we've been through hell and back, and it's been really rough.
Salt Lake City awarded him the Purple Cross for his injury and paid for some of his treatments.
My medical condition forced me to retire. Like I was getting help, and they were saying, all right, you're not done, you still have a lot more to do. And the city said, nope, you're done. So I didn't have funding to finish a lot of that therapy.
The family has been on their own to make ends meet, including traveling across the country for care.
We're baffled, we're frustrated, we feel betrayed.
So we reached out to the Salt Lake City Fire Department to understand the process of what happens in a case like this. They called us back and said that the case is now in the hands of the city attorney's office. So when I reached out to the city to try to get some answers, they told me that since it's an ongoing workers' compensation claim, they can't comment at this time.
The most painful thing about all of it is not being able to play with my kids. I can't play soccer with them even.
Now, Evan is hoping for some accountability and for the city to make things right.
The message should be like, hey, I got your back, you're going to be taken care of.
You're worth something.
And you're worth
we
something.
care that you got hurt.
Yes,
we'll help you through this.
Yeah. In Salt Lake City, I am Maithili Gobi, Fox 13 News, Utah.
A taste of Grease is in Utah this weekend, and it may be their biggest event to date. Next, we'll take you to the cultural party in Salt Lake City. Plus, a Salt Lake City couple is getting a lot of attention because of the husband's resignation note. Why he says he's unavailable during NFL games. And wait until you hear her response. Next.
And later in sports, the Holy War picks back up tomorrow night as Utah Soccer have a shot against #1 BYU, plus week number 5 for the Preps. High school football action across the Wasatch Front, including Corner Canyon taking their high wire act up to Syracuse tonight. Back in a bit.
Okay, OPA, the Salt Lake City Greek Festival. I had to say that. It opened today for its 48th annual event. This evening, I went down to the festival to check out the music, dancing, and of course the food. The weather was beautiful. The crowd was huge. Everyone having a good time, celebrating the tradition at the Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Cathedral in Salt Lake City. Chris Sacalario told me they are planning on record-breaking attendance this year, 30 to 35,000 people. In fact, it's grown so big, they extended their outdoor tent and seating area to make sure everyone can enjoy the Greek Fest.
We're known as the biggest Greek festival west of the Mississippi. So that's why we draw that over 30,000 people each year. And the food is just fantastic. The entertainment is continual. We got every age of dance group continually going, as you can hear. So people just want to come back for more.
And I could vouch for the food. It was really good. The Greek Festival is open all weekend, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Saturday, and then 11 to 8 on Sunday.
One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dozens of Utahns became U.S. citizens today. Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson hosted the naturalization ceremony in West Jordan. More than 80 people from 37 countries were sworn in as citizens, including Fernanda Hernandez, who immigrated with her family from Mexico when she was just 2 years old.
I grew up here in the United States as this was my home. I wasn't officially my home, and I didn't understand that growing up, but when I actually knew that I wasn't from here, it was a very hard process.
She says she's excited to now be able to vote. Today's ceremony was in conjunction with Mayor Wilson's Welcoming Week, which aims to celebrate diversity and commit to fostering an inclusive community. Also today, students at East High School got to an exciting start to this new class they have there. It's called Hip Hop Literature. Park City Song Summit hosted this event so students could meet some hip hop icons like Chuck D, Daryl DMC McDaniels, and David Menheim. We talked with the teacher of the course who says this was really a fantastic opportunity for all the kids.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be able to have kids meet some of the pioneers of a culture that they only know kind of for the last 10 years or so, the artists that have come up.
She says hip hop is a passion of hers and adds that when teachers are joyful in the classroom, students really can feel a difference. Well, you know it, the NFL season, it's back, it's finally here, and one Utah husband is getting noticed because he gave his wife notice. He says he will not be available for work on game days. She's scoring with her comeback, however, as CNN's Jeannie Mose reports.
You think these are hard knocks? Actually, this is a hard knock when your husband hands you a letter and asks you to read it out loud.
However, I must with remiss inform you that I am putting in my 2 weeks notice.
The NFL season was about to come to pass, and Callie Wilson's husband Dan couldn't pass on this joke.
I will no longer be available for work on Sundays, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday evenings nor Thursday evenings due to conflicting commitments.
Genius, priceless, hilarious, posted football widows and football fans alike. But the Salt Lake City father of two wasn't done, informing his wife that she was infusing IV antibiotics for an infection.
I'll also be available every Saturday.
Kelly chuckled her way through the reading, evidently got a kick out of it. As one poster commented, "At least you will have Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays." Dan informed Callie that the schedule would be in effect till February, March.
Thank you for your understanding.
Callie got offers. So, is the position available? And advice, girl, hire a temp. Instead, she returned his resignation.
Sorry, you can't quit. We're short-staffed.
She whistled that letter. Dead. Jeannie Mose, CNN, New York.
Oh, that's great. I'm throwing the penalty flag on that one to that husband. But evidently, that wasn't the only husband who submitted a letter of resignation.
I will not be available on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'll start watching football at 10 a.m., but probably get bored and ask what you're doing around 10:30. My favorite team isn't near the city that we live in, so they don't show their games, and I'm too cheap. I'm too cheap to buy Sunday NFL tickets. I did just buy Crocs in 3 new colors. Did you really?
Oh my gosh, Allison.
So my husband works with the guy who had submitted his letter of resignation. So my husband works with Dan from that story.
Okay.
They work at Intermountain together. And so my husband sent me a letter of resignation that I read, and that was just a little clip
That's
of it.
funny. That's
Yeah.
funny. Well, at least your husband's not committing all his time to NFL. He's got other things that he needs to worry
we've got
about.
a baby on the way. He said, 10 to 10:30, and then that's when he gets bored, and that's his cutoff. And he's too cheap to buy Sunday NFL tickets, so the rest of it's fine with me.
Gracious.
Yeah.
Oh, that is funny. You know, a lot of wives, too, are submitting resignations because they're tied up with games.
I know, you've got Eagle season.
Goes both ways, right? Oh, that's
Sure does.
funny, Allison. That's really cute.
Well, yeah, that was a fun story to share, and that video really went viral. ESPN picked it up, Barstool Sports, it had CNN, got tons of views, so it was fun to highlight a local couple.
Nice try to that husband.
Dan.
Yeah, Dan, come on.
Well, hey, temperatures this weekend will be really nice, regardless of what you want to do. If you're watching football, if you want to get outside, you're going to have some nice weather. 78 degrees here in Salt Lake City. Full visibility, temps across the state right now, mainly in the 60s and 70s. And then we look at our main weather headlines. It's mild and dry today. We do have some isolated to widely scattered rain returning this weekend across the region, and things will be a little bit cooler next week. Now, when I say they're going to be a little bit cooler, I don't mean it's going to be cold next week. It's just not going to be as hot as it was today and tomorrow. So satellite and radar here across the state, mainly dry conditions. We've had a few spotty showers, mainly up into Idaho or near the Idaho border. Nothing problematic. Saturday, 7 a.m. will be about 55 to 65 here across the state, with temperatures tomorrow rising around 80 to 90 degrees. Now, I do want to mention we've got some storms that could be developing tomorrow, mainly second half of the day. Higher terrain, west desert, our best chances to see these showers developing, with then a chance of precipitation not leading to any problems for our recreation areas for tomorrow. So our flash flooding potential is not expected at all of our recreation areas for tomorrow. I'd love to see that on a Saturday. Ogden's chance of precipitation over the next 7 days is rather low, but we've got some isolated chances Saturday night and Sunday, and then midweek next week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're looking at widely scattered isolated storm chances for Ogden. For Provo, your chance of precipitation this weekend isolated Saturday night and Sunday, and then a little bit of a higher chance Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week with some widely scattered storm chances. And then for the St. George area, you're going to be a little more consistent. We're going to see Monday through about next Thursday, isolated to widely scattered storm chances. So St. George, you're hot tomorrow, about 100 degrees. By Sunday and Monday, mid-90s, and then you'll cool down a little bit, a high near 90 starting next Tuesday. Overnight temps 65 to 70 for the next week. And for Salt Lake, our overnight temps will be about 60 to 65 for the next 7 mornings. But for the Wasatch Front tomorrow, a high near 90. And then as we look after our 7-day forecast, we are going to continue with temperatures here through the middle part of September that will stay a little bit above average. And an average high this time of year is 84 degrees.
Syracuse wants to believe they have the chops to be in the running for a 6A crown come November. The Titans off to a 4-0 start coming in, but tonight came the real test against the team that is in the running every year. Corner Canyon moving into Max Prep's top 25 after a 4-1 start. Their only loss coming via number 2 Bishop Gorman of Vegas, but give the first one to the host Titans. DJ Mays from Jake Hopkins in the flat before Mays turns up, sideline, and then some. Eventually reaching pay dirt, 48 yards for the lead. Then again, the Chargers answer real quick. Isaac Wilson on the cell to even things up at a touchdown apiece. And this kind of thing is in his blood. The future Ute Wilson with fresh gunpowder in the cannon. Brandon Ayre comes down with it for the corner lead, all part of a monster quarter. Brighton Brady with room. Eventually cuts back to get 25 more out of it. It led to a Boston Snow touchdown, and then Hopkins hit as he throws right here. Tanner Adamson on the pick. This was all 22nd ranked corner, 42-14. Lehigh's first season at 6A going swimmingly thus far. In fact, the Pioneers ring the bell to start the third. Jet New meets up with his tight end Grayson Brousseau to break a 21-all tie with Harriman. Then the Pioneer defense takes their turn on the highlight reel. Frederick Tae intercepted by Max Ray. It would lead to 3 more for Purple, 48-28 as Lehigh extends their start to 5-0. Stay in Utah County for the start of Region 7. Timpview marching at Springville. Helaman Kasuga with a healthy looking ball for Ty Nakua. Always nice to hear that last name. Leads to a Trinity Toa kick. Kasuga later locating the end zone in the first, returns the other way to find Braxton Wilkerson in waiting past the pylon. Springville's offense struggling to do anything at all as the T-Birds shut them out, 17-0. Region 6, where the Olympus-Brighton rivalry is always fun. How about the Titans unloading? Chase Mosley with a 65-yard touchdown pass in the first and a 50-yarder right there. Luke Bryant on the receiving end, but the Bengals had the lead at the break. Jack Johnson sees dollar signs at the pylon and does it himself, and the Bengals got it done with a late score, 24-20. Expect a lively rivalry romp tomorrow night at Ute Field. It's Utah Soccer's last shot at BYU before they become conference foes again for the first time since 2011. But it's also the Cougars' first game since becoming #1 for the first time in program history. Sophomore striker Ellie Walbrook wants to try and keep hold of that top spot for as long as possible.
They always come for blood, and it's going to be just another match for us, and we really need to prepare just like it is the UCLA game because it's the most important match of the season for us. So I think just having that pressure on our backs, we've really got to show up and show out.
And BYU volleyball is top 10 as well this year. Final game of the Cougar Classic in Pullman tonight against Washington State. Blue on the block and easily takes set 1, though the other Cougars have since taken sets 2 and 3. This one currently in the 4th set. We're right back.
Thanks so much for watching. QuickCast is next.